Hey everybody. So today's video for our more advanced TapTap Heroes uh, playlist that I'm making is about tanks. So before I really get into it, let me define what a tank is. So for me, when I talk about tanks, I'm talking about the hero that is in the first position. So if you're looking at like a defense, a tank is someone right here, front, top, left, meaning they're the ones who are taking the basic attack from all the enemies that attack. So just so we get that straight, that's what I mean by tank. I don't mean warriors or anything like that. Um, so now that we got that out of the way, I thought this video would be really useful because of that reason. People think that because warriors are tanky as far as health and armor goes, that those are the best tanks. And a lot of new players fall for that trap. So I was hoping to make this video to give people an idea of what the actual meta looks like. So, let's go ahead and just jump into it because there's a lot to talk about. So I'm gonna do top five, but let me start off with some honorable mentions because I know people are going to be asking about these heroes later, since I didn't include them in the list, and they are good, but in their own way. So I'll talk about them first. And the first one I'd like to talk about is Luna. Luna tank isn't viable until 10 star, right? Because what ends up happening with Luna is she gets this ability here. So she deals damage and silences, which is always really good. But after she casts her skill, gets into a reduced damage buff where she takes 80% less damage, which is really good. Like it really doesn't matter how much health you have, like when you're taking this little damage. Because reduced damage is like a flat percentage decrease. So no matter what damage you're taking, it's just cutting that by 80%. It's really strong. And it can be good. Lunatank can be good, but there are a couple of things that have to happen for that to work. One, she has to be fast because she has to cast it first. And in this meta with TOTG or energy artifacts being a thing, the you kind of want to give her the energy artifact so that she can cast her skill right away, and then every hits that come after that have the reduced damage. So the problem I have with Luna is that as a tank, I think she requires Tear of the Goddess. And two things need to happen. One, she's not really innately tanky. She needs to cast her skill. So heroes that CC on basic attacks, like Shudmel, Freya is the biggest one. Freya, basic attack, has a chance to petrify. Uh, Medusa. There are a lot of heroes. I could go on. Even like Sir Conrad early on, things like that. Their basic attacks do CC. She can't cast her skill even if she is fast. Um, this is a problem. So Luna doesn't make my top five, but still can be really good if she can cast her skill. So my next one, which I think people really thought was going to be on the list, is Mulan. So let's go ahead and look at 10 star Mulan actually. So the thing with Mulan is she's really interesting. I like her design. I think she um, could have been really, really good. And the reason people want to use Mulan is not because she's tanky, but because she can dodge. She has very high dodge chance. So in her kit, like in her actual passives, she has a passive 20% increase in dodge. So she's at 20, right? Then on every basic attack, she increases her dodge by 6%, and it can basically stack twice, right, before the last one falls off. So, and Mulan is very fast, really, really fast. So let's assume she has that 6%. So, and let's go ahead and assume like throughout the battle she has the 12% from two in a row that stack. So let's give her 20 plus 12, she's at 32%. Then another thing you have to look into is that at 32%, she also has tech. She is a warrior, or she is a wanderer, sorry. And wanderers have really high dodge chance, 30%, because it's in one of the first three rows. And 30%, that puts her at right 62% dodge now. And now you have to consider the last piece of dodge here is let's see if I can preview it. Yep. Sorry, it's this one. Pedal dance. If you're using Raphael as you're familiar, which most people are because It is the best familiar. I made a video about it if you're interested. She's going to get 10% from here. So now she's at like 72%. And then I forgot one thing in her kit. Sorry. Where is it? What? I'm missing something. But she can get up to like 80% dodge. Oh, the art or the rune. There's a dodge rune that gives, I believe it's close to like 16% dodge. I don't have it on any of my heroes anymore, but that brought her up to like 80 something percent dodge. So sorry, I can't remember what the rune does, but it's like 16% dodge, I think, 16 or 18. Uh, they changed the numbers a little bit, so that's a really high dodge chance for Mulan. 80%. The great thing about dodge and why it's very viable is that you don't gain energy when your attack gets dodged, and that can really hurt some heroes if they can't get energy. I mean, that hurts almost every hero besides maybe Shadmel. So really strong. The downside, everything I've said is great about Mulan. She's fast, really high dodge chance. Dodging is better than getting hit almost always. But the downside, the first one is she gets countered very hard by Hester, who isn't really meta, but a lot of people have Hester. The thing with Hester is that her basic attacks reduces the enemy dodge by 31%, and that's a lot. I know she has to hit, but that's a lot of reduced dodge. Also, the faction bonus. If you look at the bonus in the factions, the um, 30% extra damage from undead to alliance and 15% extra hit rate. So that's unfortunate. The next thing, and lastly, is hit rate from guild tech. So people are getting 25% guild tech hit rate if they're from mage or wander. So that also hurts Mulan. So that's why she kind of falls off. And the main reason I actually didn't put her on their top five is because she's not viable for like 99% of players. No one has their maxed out familiar dodge. Very few people have maxed out guild tech dodge. And so you're I didn't want to recommend her. And then lastly, I spent a lot of time with Mulan because I knew people were going to ask me why isn't Mulan on the list. But let's make this next one real quick. The last one I'm going to put is not really a joke, but it's going to sound like it. But oh shoot, here we go. Nameless King. So Nameless King is only good as a tank in PvE scenarios. You, People really underestimate it, but his crit mark that he puts on enemies when he gets hit does a lot of damage. Everyone's going to attack him. They're all going to get an automatic crit mark, and then he's going to trigger that as soon as he casts his skill because he's really slow, so he'll go last. And that's really strong for Friend Boss. I use him for Friend Boss tank. I think he's even better than Scarlet. So there you go. That's my. He's not really PvP, but I figured I would talk about him. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the list. So my number five actually comes from uh, Heaven as well, is Verthandi. So let's go ahead and look at Verthandi. Some of the main things that I pointed out for Verthandi being a good tank is that she comes with dodge chance. All clerics do. Uh, and like I said, why dodge was good. Same reason Mulan has dodge and why that's good. Denies energy. That's great. The next one is her damage reflect. So let's go ahead and look at that. It's this last one. When she takes damage, she has a 35% chance to deal damage back to the attacker. 212% of attack. That is a really high percentage. And this reflect does stack up. Like every time someone hits her, she could potentially she can you can start off the battle if you're fighting a Verthandi tank just with 80% of your health because she's just reflecting a lot of damage back to you. So the one thing you'll notice on all of my picks is I like consistency. And the consistent part about Verthandi is once I know that's a 35% chance, which is low, but if she does like not get hit, it's a dodge. If she does get hit, there's also a chance to reflect. So those are two bonuses for being a tank, and that's why I picked Verthandi as my number five. Um, she could be higher if this chance was higher, I do think. Let's move on to the next one. So my fourth pick, which is really close to Verthandi, I probably could switch them back and forth, and I'll tell you why I made this decision over Verthandi. But I have Vegvisir, and Vegvisir is a dual hero, like he can be a tank or a backline, and he changes because of that. I think most people agree that his front line is better in this skill here. Right here. No, where is it? It should be this one. Yeah, he increases his hero's HP by 60% as a frontliner. That's a big increase. And as a backline, he gets crit damage and crit rate, which it's okay, but I don't think it makes him a good enough damage dealer, especially because he's a warrior. So I like to put him as a tank. And he's a pretty common hero. I think you can buy him in guild with guild tech or with guild coins now. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is an option. And so the great thing about Vegas here that I put the reason I put him over Verthandi is because he has a CC. And CC is really good. He has a 48% chance to freeze enemies, 4 random enemies. That's pretty high, but he has to crit for it to happen. Luckily, his crit chance is really high, especially um, at like under 51% health. He gets a 41% increase in crit rate, which almost always happens when he gets basic attacked by all 6 heroes. He's slow, so then he casts his skill. And he gets a good freeze off. He almost always gets a freeze, so this is a big reason why Vigorous here is great. The next reason is that every time he gets hit, he heals himself. Right here, it's a small heal. Also, when he gets hit, he increases crit rate even more. So, like I said, he's going to get freezes off. Uh, but I had to add it because it's nice. It's guaranteed heal. And then he has a gigantic health pool, mostly because of this 60% health. But even on top of that, like he naturally has a lot of health. And the last thing is you want Vegvisir to take damage. Like he does better when he's injured because of his fourth skill. And so that's why he's a great first spot tank. When he gets below 51% health, he's going to increase his crit rate and he's going to heal a ton. It's almost like a revive because 405% of his attack every round for 3 rounds, he almost heals back to full if he doesn't keep getting hit, right? So another very consistent, very good tank. So let's move on to the third one. And this is where I think there's a big gap. So there's five, there's four, and then the top three are really good. Like these three heroes, I think they kind of spread. I could almost have just done a top three video, but I wanted to add these two because I think they're decent. Anyway, number three is Ultima. And Ultima is, I hate Ultima. I really did. I've had to fight against Ultimas for so long because people realize how good of a tank he was early. And the reason Ultima is such a great tank is because the meta for a long time was you get Ultima gets hit by 6 times or whatever, however many times, but he has kind of low health. He's decent armor, but he almost always got below 50% health. And when he got below 50% health, this is broken. He increases all allies' attack by 30% and reduces all enemies' defense by 9, which is almost now everyone's doing true damage. And what would happen is he would get below 50%, and then right after that would happen, his whole team would have full energy bars, and they would just start casting skills. And it was very frustrating to deal with because your team would just die instantly. No one could out heal it at the time. And I say he used to be number one tank, by the way. So that's why I'm saying before he's still great because of the same reasons. Okay, so there's two other things that I like to point out. One is that he's a cleric, so he's dodge, and also dodge rune is his best rune um, because he's a cleric and it adds up so much. So I think the dodge is I think the dodge is almost as good as the fourth skill going off. Most of the time, this is what'll end up happening. He'll get down to 50%, and then randomly he'll just start dodging a bunch. So it's really annoying that he's still alive and he's getting this bonus on everyone. But say he doesn't get CC'd and he's able to cast his skill, which happens a lot because he's one of the fastest heroes in the whole game. This skill is awesome. He increases his whole backline speed by 30% and another 20% extra damage for 2 rounds. So what it means is your whole team is getting a 30% bonus from this, right? And now your backline is getting another 20% bonus. So they get 50% extra attack to cast their skills with, and the enemy team has 9 reduced defense. Like, I really don't need to talk about it anymore. Ultima is just awesome as a tank. And he's a cleric, so it doesn't even make sense. But that's how the game works. And so if you have an Ultima, be happy because he's the second best alliance hero in my opinion, right behind Valkyrie. And if you have been unlucky and haven't been able to get any Valkyries, then I really recommend shooting for Ultima, who can now be bought from the Soul Shop, so for cheap too. So really recommend him. Okay, now we're getting to the top two, and this next hero I'm really not happy having to talk about as a tank, but I had to bring it up, and I might be biased as to why it's not number one, uh, because it probably could be or should be number one. But anyway, the next one is Phoenix. So Phoenix I have as number two tank in the game. Uh, Here's the thing. It may not be that Phoenix is a good tank. It may just be that Phoenix is such a good hero that even at tank, it's the best at that. You see what I mean? Like, specifically, it's not like this is such a good tank. The thing is, he's good in every single position that I have to put him on the top five tank list. Because even at tank, where it's probably may not be its ideal role, he's just so strong. So, but he's not built as a tank, but he has some tanking skills, and I'll read that out real quick. He revives. It's always good to it's always good to have a revive as a tank, but specifically for Phoenix, he revives, and so when he does, he stuns people. He's a 50% chance to stun the entire enemy team, like a chance at every person. So that's really strong. You want him to take damage. You want him to die. The earlier he casts this, the bigger impact it has in a fight. So putting him as the tank where he takes more damage means more. Basically, it's better. You want him to die. And when he revives, he revives at 77% of his max health. That's really good. And he triggers a pretty big heal for 5 rounds. So he ends up staying alive for a long time. I think that makes what the main reason this is the main reason why he's so strong. Because he dies, he comes back. He's hard to kill because he's reducing your attack. Your team's probably almost dead anyway because of his burn damage. And then like the icing on the cake is that as a as a tank, you generally get more energy than all the other heroes because you're getting hit by basic attacks. And in TapTap heroes, when you're getting hit by attacks, you gain energy. So Phoenix, you want him to cast a skill a whole bunch. So as a tank, he's able to do that. Still have to be careful about CC though. All right, so my number one pick, which should be pretty obvious because I haven't mentioned this hero and is obviously going to be on the list, is Monkey King. So this is Monkey King. He is a hell hero. Actually, I want to talk about Monkey King a lot because people are going to argue with me that he's not the best. But I think he has some pros that you guys are forgetting. So before I get to those pros, let me just talk about his kit. One, he has a revive. He revives back at full health when he dies, which is awesome. That's like 2 lives, right? Really good ability. Second, he has a reflect. When he takes damage, he has an 86% chance to deal damage back to the attacker. 86% is really high, very consistent, and really good. So I had to bring that. It's actually, people forget, like, 186% of Monkey King's attack is a lot of damage. So, and at such a high chance to happen, I think I think this is actually one of his best tank attributes. And then this third point I have, it says meta with heals. What I mean by this is Monkey King wasn't meta or wasn't a good tank actually early on. In fact, I thought Ultima was better than Monkey King at tanking. The reason for that though was we didn't have Valkyrie, we didn't have Phoenix, and we didn't have Shud Mel at the time. Now and Drow. Now that we have these four heroes, they all heal a lot, and Monkey King actually benefits a lot from heals. He's he's really good with heals. The reason for that is because the longer Monkey King stays alive, he keeps getting this trigger, and this trigger is really good. He gets a 280% attack every 2 rounds for people that he's cast his skill on. It's called a timed mark. And if Monkey King can stay alive for a long time, you'll notice as a tank he can do your top damage. I have him as my tank, and he consistently out damages the rest of my heroes. Um, so I think with the reflect and with this timed mark and with the meta being so healy, Monkey King doesn't care about getting CC'd that much either. Also, he has reduced damage when he casts a skill, which is it's a bonus. And you know, I wanted to put Phoenix first because she is so OP, but this is. Let me keep going. So first off, he happens to be like one of the best 1v1 characters in the game because he has the revive and all that. I thought I would just bring it up. These next 2 points are like really weak, but I figured I would bring it up. And lastly, he has let me go to it real quick. He has a skin. So people are going to be like, whatever, it's a skin. But the skin actually gives 3% reduced damage and 2% HP. So that helps him get tankier. It's not bad. So let me wear that. And it looks cool. So, okay. So now here's an argument that I think people will forget. Most people want a unity aura. So if you want unity aura, that means you need one hero of every faction. um these next 2 points are really big. So let's talk about the Unity aura. So for Hell, your options are Freya, Zizanath, Monkey King, and uh Chesia. So right now Chesia and Zizanath are kind of out of the meta, so your options are Freya and Monkey King. Now Freya is really good. I always tell people to go for Freya if you can. But the thing with Freya is that she requires Tear of the Goddess because there are people that are faster than her now that can CC her first. Monkey King does not need Tear of the Goddess. In fact, he's almost better without it, especially if you could get like Bone Grip or something. I feel like those artifacts are really good on him. So without Tear of the Goddess, Monkey King is very consistent, does high damage, and stays alive. So that's why he's my number one. But you also want to remember that if he doesn't have Tear of the Goddess, this means you can put it on another hero. And we're talking Phoenixes, Valkyries, Mars. Like at end game, they're better. There are heroes who do better with Tear of the Goddess than Monkey King and Freya. Um, and so he opens up that slot. I think that's definitely worth picking out, mentioning because I know technically he may not be the best tank as far as just staying alive, although he might. But the fact that he doesn't need Tear of the Goddess to be relevant is a really big bonus because it opens it up for someone else on your team. So that's about it, guys. Here's the give everyone a picture real quick. Here's my final verdict here. If there's anyone I missed, let me know in the comments. If you think I missed out on a point, like I just remembered now, like Verthandi's really good with the with the artifact Gift of Creation, true damage, reduced damage, HP. She can take advantage of that. That also makes her a good tank. There are points that I missed. I understand. And but if you would rank them differently, uh, if you would have added a hero I didn't talk about, please let me know in the comments or message me. And like I said, your team composition really matters. So these are just in general, I think, the best ones. And if you have them, congratulations. If not, then work towards it, and hopefully uh, it'll work out for you. So thanks for watching my video, guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace.